Something very important that the Amazing Digital Circus teaches us is the way different people respond to trauma. Everyone responds to trauma differently, but the way you respond to it is entirely your choice. And regardless of who you are or who you become from that trauma, it's your responsibility how to respond to it and to handle it. And, of course, your trauma is never an excuse for the inconvenience you cause it to be for others, because the thing with Kinger is that originally at one point he hated himself because he blamed himself for things he couldn't control, but with spending all that time alone, he learned to work on himself and actually be better. But then when Ragatha came along, he didn't have to feel alone. Like, Ragatha was the first person he could be close with in years, like his first friend in the circus. And, I mean, of course Queenie could count as a friend, but she's also his wife. But, like, the first person, Ragatha was the first person that showed up in the circus that he was close with, but not romantically involved with either. Just a friend that he could be with. And it makes so much sense that Ragatha joined so early in the circus, which is why they had that heart-to-heart and why they're close in a way, and why they teamed up together, and why it seems they always get along. Like, they never fight. It always seemed like they were friends for a long time, but I never knew that they were friends for that long. And the way Jax responds to trauma is not like Kinger. Kinger doesn't lash out on other people, and he doesn't have a self-destructive pattern. He doesn't lash out on people, he doesn't bully people, and he doesn't yell at people at all. Like, we don't really see him angry at anyone because he just isn't that type of person. And Ragatha is a mess. Like, she had to deal with trauma of her own abusive mother, but she never took that out on anyone. She never she never bullied people. I mean, she does lash out on Jax, but it's in a way justified because Jax is obviously, of course, a very shitty person, and there's a lot of things that she could have done that she didn't do, and those are her consequences. But I'm in no way saying she deserved to abstract. I don't think anyone deserves to abstract. Like, that's a fate worse than death, in my opinion. I think anyone who has abstracted in the past, if you were to interview all of them, if you could, hypothetically, they would say, yeah, I would rather die than abstract. And abstraction is an allegory to taking your own life, which I definitely see that. They definitely have that sort of way where, you know, at that point it comes inevitable, but the thing with taking your life is that it's very unpredictable and it's very sudden, and there comes a point where it's inevitable. There's no saving them. And I think the same thing happened with Jax. Pomni tried saving Jax, but there was nothing that she could do. There is this stage of abstraction where you can't save that other person. I think that if Jax hadn't had a self-destructive pattern after opening up, I do think Ribbit maybe would have lasted longer, but I think she still would have eventually abstracted because, let's say, hypothetically, she didn't yell at Ribbit. Let's say Jax didn't do that. Let's say they just stopped talking to each other at that point. Let's just say they stopped being friends, but they never fought. Let's say they never talked to each other again. I think she would have still abstracted. But the thing is, with relationships or types of friendship, regardless of what type of relationship you have with that person, it's better to have a fight with them than to never talk to them at all. Because when you have a fight with someone, at least you're talking to them. At least you're saying things about them. Maybe you'll say things you don't mean, but it's better than just being silent about it. Because at one point, whether you like it or not, you have to talk to that person. And I'm glad that they were at least able to talk instead of just, never talking to each other again. Even though it was unresolved and Jax practically lost everything in his life, or his digital life, that he ever could have loved, or just everyone that he always cared for, just leave him. Yes, he faced the consequences, and his trauma is not an excuse, but the show also teaches you that the way characters respond to, that people respond to trauma very differently, and the way they respond to it is entirely their choice. And when you do make that mistake where you respond to trauma negatively, you bottle it up, you take it out on others, you bully people just to make others feel insecure because you think it's funny and you want to feel better. That decision is irreversible and will not only harm other people, but it will harm you. You're not just hurting other people, you're also hurting yourself. And it causes a big effect on the people you abuse. But the person you cause it on is also yourself. Because it comes to a point where everyone in the way, or everyone involved in this conflict, is being hurt. And I think that Kinger and Ragatha responded to trauma in a way that's very healthy, because they didn't take it out on others. They were able to open up to each other and as well to some other people as well, and in a way be honest with each other and with other people too. The person that they are closest with are Pomni. And I don't believe Pomni has any trauma outside of the circus. It seemed like Pomni was just really nervous when she was first in the circus, which like everyone was when they first appear. And it already is like hinted in earlier episodes that Kinger and Ragatha have this sort of connection as friends. Seemed like they have known each other for a long time, but we never really see that until the final episode. And it's really sweet that we get to see that, because like they have this just really wholesome dynamic, and so do Ragatha and Pomni. I think the scene that made me cry the most was Pomni and Ragatha hugging. Like, bro, that scene got me more than the Jackson Pomni scene. Like Pomni's final moments with Jax. Like, don't get me wrong, that moment hurt, but like, I felt the moments with Ragatha and Pomni so much more, because their relationship overall is just, so much stronger and so much better. Like, they still have it resolved. I don't know, man. I mean, it's important to note that people, of course, circling back, that people respond to trauma very differently. But when you have trauma and you have a way to open up to someone and have someone be there for you, because Gangle has someone to support her, Pomni has someone to support her, she has people to support her, she has, I think, like the whole group to support her, and Ragatha has someone to support her, and Kinger can open up to people, and in a way, all of those characters have each other. And when you have no one to talk to, you're more likely to abstract, because you don't have anyone there to support you. But I'm not saying, I'm not saying you can't have, I'm not saying that you can like, there's the thing, like, you can still have someone be there for you and like, not, and like still abstract, because, that it just gets to that point, at one point where it's just inevitable, But something I kind of wondered is it possible for circus members to abstract like at once? Like can two circus members abstract at the same time? I think maybe that can happen. I think it might have happened with the four other characters at the beginning of or the other characters that were the first wave of humans during the circus, like Scratch and the other four characters, like, yeah, those characters. I think some of them might have abstracted at the same time, because I believe that those other characters that abstracted after Scratch but before Queenie were all friends. So I think maybe they just abstracted like soon after each other. But I really am curious, can one character actually abstract at the same time? But yeah. King and Ragatha are living proof that, there's resilience, of course, and Pomni's super resilient, but like there are ways you can respond to trauma that don't involve you being a shitty person, because trauma is obviously not an excuse, and Jax is a cautionary tale of that. What she did to herself, but she also harmed other people in the making of that. And I think that I definitely would have handled it differently, obviously, if I were Jax, because I'm obviously a very different person from Jax. I mean, everyone's different, but like I am different too, in terms of like being different from Jax. But I would have handled the whole thing very differently. But I think it came to a point where there was no saving her. I mean, Pomni tried her best, but, you get to that point where abstraction is, like, inevitable, and the way you respond to trauma, I think, can have an impact on your fate of abstraction. And I think what can cause abstraction is when you don't work on yourself. When you don't learn to accept yourself or love yourself, and you're just self-destructive, that definitely can cause abstraction. That, in a way, caused Jax's abstraction, but what if the same thing happened to Ribbit? What if she no longer had anyone to rely on, that she just became extremely self-destructive, and she never worked on herself, and that also caused her to abstract? Now, I don't think anyone is at fault for abstracting. Of course, no one is at fault for that. In a way, you are responsible if someone does abstract, but the person abstracting can happen for several reasons. But abstraction comes to a point where it's just inevitable and there's not really anyone saving. But that can definitely impact on the way you respond to trauma, because, in the real world and in the digital world or whatever, you get to choose how you respond to trauma. You can either learn from it, you can run from it, or, even worse, you can take it out on other people. But by the end of the day, it is your choice. And Jax, by the end of the day, made her choice, and so did everyone else. That's just the reality of reacting to trauma. And I think, in a way, with trauma, you should try to learn from it. But there are ways you can overcome trauma. And once you do, you'll feel amazing. You'll feel incredible overcoming trauma. And yes, it can happen to people where they never truly overcome trauma. Like, Ragatha never overcame her trauma of her abusive mother, and Kinger never overcame his trauma of losing his wife, but he found a way to work on himself. And I think that's what saved him from abstraction. I think he saved himself from abstraction, but other people, in a way, in turn, saved him. And I think what also saved him from abstraction was Ragatha. But what did happen when he was all alone is that He even forgot his name for a moment. No one really knows how long he was by himself, but I'm going to say maybe 1 year or 2 years. I think that Kinger and Queenie were alone together for a very long time before anyone else showed up. And then years later, she abstracted, and then Ragatha came along. I think what's really sweet is that we learned that Kinger, you know, when he was, like, out in the real world, or, you know, before he was brain scanned or whatever, he had 2 daughters. And I think that's honestly really sweet, because that kind of explains why he was so close with Ragatha and Pomni. But, oh my god, this is a long video, but just, like, key takeaway from when you watch TADC, if you choose to rewatch it, or anyone who has watched it, respond to trauma well. Don't let it bite you in the ass. Don't bottle it up. Just work on yourself. You don't have to tell people about it if you're not ready, but just always work on yourself with your trauma. You're gonna find a good way to regulate it. You will figure it out if you don't let it take advantage of you, if you don't take advantage of other people. Just, in a way, learn about it. Learn how to respond to it, because it will help you in the end. And I think it's a part of a message that the show conveys extremely well. I think that's one of my favorite aspects of the finale, about the way different people respond to trauma, and it brings complexity towards a person. But the reason why we have trauma is because we're human. Like, we deal with really terrible shit as people. But we can also, in a way, learn from it and overcome it in turn. We should never forget our trauma, but we should always, like, learn a way to respond to it. And that's, I think, a really important message in a show.